If we could please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to the August 24th, 2026 business meeting of the Milford Board of Education. May we have a roll call, Ms. Flonnet, please?
Yes. Megan Doyle?
Here.
Jennifer Brown?
Here.
Mary Claire Edmonds?
Here.
Nicole Flowers?
Here.
Tom Kova?
Here.
Adam Scobie?
Here.
Hannah Tedros?
Here.
Nicole Wilhelm?
Here.
Cindy Boynton?
Ms. Boynton is absent.
Okay. And Susan Glennon?
Here.
Okay, we have 9 members present.
Thank you. All right, public comment this evening. I'm going to read the public comment statement, and then anybody that might wish to address the board can do so. Speakers may offer objective comments about school operations and programs. The board encourages speakers not to express personal complaints or defamatory comments about the Milford Board of Education personnel or any person associated with the Milford Public School System. Security issues and matters relating to negotiations and grievances will not be permitted, and consistent with the principles of the Federal Education Right to Privacy Act, discussion of students is prohibited absent parental waiver. Public comment does not allow for two-way conversation between speakers and the board, but we welcome and appreciate your comments and opinions, and all will be taken into consideration. Please note that our meetings are televised and live streamed on YouTube, and we ask that you state your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Is there anybody this evening that would like to address the board for public comment? Yes. You can either stay at your seat or you can come up to the podium, whatever you're most comfortable with.
No, I'll go to the
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Claudia Matthews. I have been a resident of Milford for the past 80 years. And I would have brought this, what I'm going to talk about earlier, to the board. I just found out about this bill 298 that was passed in March by Governor Lamont, Senator Bloomberg, and a Rep. Rosa DeLawyer about a directive for the Connecticut Board of Education to implement Arab and Islamic studies into public school, kindergarten through 12. And I'm sure you're all aware of that bill. And I'm here to protest that bill. We are here in America. We're not studying Islamic or Arab studies. If someone wants to do that, go to the library. It shouldn't be in our public schools at all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Could we just have your
Now I'll
address?
turn it over to my husband.
Could we have your address for the record, please?
Pardon me?
Your address for the record.
40 Founders Way in Milford.
Thank you. Did you wish to speak to, sir?
First of all, my name is Frank Matthews, 40 Founders Way in Milford. I've been here 83 years, and I want to start by thanking each of you for the time that you spend on this board. It's just, you just can't get people to volunteer their time anymore. So before I harass you, I'd like to thank you. I also am concerned about this bill 298 that was passed, and I'm here to have you assure me that it's not in our Milford school system, and it's not going to be in our Milford school system. I don't see why we should be teaching that. Half the time, we're not even teaching American history, for Christ's sake. And now they're saying we should teach this. And if we do teach it, I'm sure they're not going to put in that curriculum that they flew airplanes into the Twin Towers and killed 3,000 people, that they've said death to America for the past 47 years, that they've sent a boat into the coal and killed 42 sailors. None of that's going to be mentioned. So I'm not big on having us teach a lot Islamic studies about people that have screamed death to Americans for the past 47 years. So can somebody here please assure me that we're not teaching that?
So, sir, we don't respond to public comment, we just listen to what you have to say, and we can't assure that. But I would suggest you can reach out to the superintendent with a phone call tomorrow, and she'll discuss it with you.
I gave Mr. Matthews my business
Okay.
card, so.
We, as a board, we don't respond to public comment. We're just here to listen to what you have to say. And I would suggest that you would reach out to the superintendent tomorrow. She said she gave you her phone number, and she'll discuss it with you and explain the bill.
I got her phone number.
Right,
so-
yep, and she should be,
Thank you
Dr.
for listening.
Kutayo would be happy to call you. And thank you for
Thank you.
recognizing that we are volunteers. Not many people realize that we do not get paid. Thank you for coming.
You're not getting paid a lot either. So.
Yeah, correct. Thank you for coming. Is there anybody else that would like to address the, sure.
Alan Stern, 326 West Main Street. Hello again. As Vice President of the Milford Education Association, I just wanted to say it's great to be back. Today, teachers were back in their buildings. We were, visiting, seeing our colleagues, hearing what happened over the summer, and then getting down to some professional development. And really, this is our spring into this new year. And I have to say we're all very excited about it, a little nervous, can't lie there. But we're really looking forward to, seeing the kids on Thursday, really beginning a great year. And the union, we're looking forward to working with you on this, so thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Is there anybody else that would like to address the board this evening? All right, seeing none, I'll close public comment and we'll move on to the rest of our agenda. We have 2 items of new business to address first. Ms. Doyle, if you could give us a motion, please, for the new business A.
Sure.
I make a motion that the Board of Education approve the settlement agreement between the Milford Board of Education and the Milford School Security Guards Union, Local 1303, Council Number 4, AFSCME, and then AFL-CIO, for the period retroactive to July 1st through and including June 30th, 2030.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Tedros seconds. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And then new business item 4B.
I make a motion that the Board of Education approve the settlement agreement between the Milford Board of Education and the United Public Service Employees Union, the USSEU, Milford cafeteria workers for the period retroactive to July 1st, 2026 through and including June 30th, 2030.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Tedros seconds. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Chair's report, I just have a couple of items. Just a reminder that we are now back to our regular, normal meeting schedule. So I want to welcome everyone back from the summer break. I hope you had a good summer. We go back to the second and fourth Mondays of the month, barring any holidays. So September 14th is our next business meeting. And then September 28th would be our committee of the whole meeting for September. Convocation, as you all know, will be held on Wednesday morning, beginning at 8 a.m. or thereabouts, 7:45 for coffee, 8:15 for the convocation. Don't forget, it's at Jonathan Law High School. So convocation celebrates the official start of the new year. Students return on Thursday, and I'm sure everybody is ready and anticipating a new year. We're wishing everybody good luck. And please note you found your budget books, your final budget books are at your workstations, so you should hold on to those. And we will have liaison reports. Any liaison reports?
Sure.
Ms. Doyle?
Sure. We had a permanent schools meeting last week where we discussed a number of issues that are ongoing. Currently, construction is beginning at Jonathan Law in terms of demolition, and remediation of hazardous materials that are within the building. We discussed a variety of payment requisitions, and talked about various insurance matters that needed to be covered. And so that will be proceeding throughout the school year. And at law, the tech wing is kind of partitioned off, so the construction will continue throughout the school year to the least minimal disruption to the building. Proceeding with HVAC projects, which is Meadowside and East Shore. And then we're also proceeding with roof projects at West Shore. And so those are the current status. And then esports, they're putting in information. I think it was put in. Was it esports put in? Esports was put in, and so we'll find out next year if we receive money.
Esports was put in for?
To the state.
State.
State for reimbursement eligibility for determination, which will be determined by end of session next year, May 2027. But meanwhile, plans are proceeding to have construction start end of next school year.
Okay, thank you. Any other liaison reports? PTA Council does not meet until the end of September, but I had reached out to them to get a list of meeting dates for their local units. We'll talk about that more during the long-range planning agenda item. But they are all looking forward to the start of school as well. PTAs and PTOs are gearing up. With that, no other liaison reports? All right, we'll turn the meeting over to Dr. Kutaya for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Ms. Glenn, and members of the board. It's so good to be back. I hope everyone's enjoyed their summer. We're going to get started with our annual report to the board. It's a summary of the incredible and professional learning that's been occurring over the last couple of months and the work in curriculum. And leading that tonight is Dr. Ottieri.
Oh,
Did
congratulations.
you notice something different there? So speaking of professional learning, we have a doctor among us. And I know we have a team of teachers, and I'm going to let you introduce them as part of their presentation, okay?
Thank you,
Hand
Dr.
things over
Steyer.
to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening, Ms. Glenn and members of the board. Thank you for the acknowledgement for my new degree. Thank you for that. As we do every year, Dr. Kataya mentioned at this time, we dive into the amazing work that our team of leaders and teachers have done over the last several months of the school year. And we have many special guests with us tonight, so I'll kind of introduce them now. Several teachers as well as some of our amazing supervisor team. So I'll start with our supervisor team first. Sitting in the back of the room, we have Miss Stephanie Corrado, our K-5 STEM coordinator. We have Dr. Beth Morrow, who is our K-5 instructional supervisor of humanities. And then we have this amazing group of 5 educators who you're going to get to hear from tonight. We have Miss Alicia Curria, who just recently transitioned into a role as a math coach at Pumpkin Delight. Amanda Kemp, who actually just moved from grade 2 to grade 1 at JFK. We have lots of movement going on. A relatively new change, Miss Emily Grindell has gone from teaching grade 5 at Orange and has now taken an art teaching position at Mathewson Elementary. And that is really brand new. Hannah Frazier, who is one of our incredible music teachers in district. And Miss Vivian First, who is our world language teacher at Jonathan Law. So you'll get to hear from this incredible group tonight as we get into our presentation. So I always want to start first with just a little bit of grounding into what we're going to kind of share with you a little bit tonight. And that is our curriculum review and revision cycle. And this really serves as a lens for us to help inform planning for the budget. But it also allows us you'll see it's kind of a 7-year cycle that we go through, starting with a program review, allows us to make sure that we stay current. We know just like any other profession, education is always changing. And we need to make sure that we stay current with standards, as well as the instructional practices that are best going to suit our learners. So having this process allows us to make sure that we're continuously refining and revising our curriculum, and also making sure that we look for any gaps or redundancies in our progression of learning. Our amazing supervisor team, again, I've given you kind of a detailed overview of all of the curriculum written over the summer. Our supervisor team led 57 different courses or grade levels of curriculum work over the summer. And you can see some of the highlights there. Alignment with our K-5 math program, which is some of the work that a group of our teachers did last year to support really strengthening our math program. We also have been working on an interdisciplinary course at the Academy, which is a team course between ELA and social studies. So we're really excited for that opportunity this year. And remember that out of our 300 different courses in the district, we're always trying to make sure that we have them in a process where we're revising and continuing to build upon the work that we're doing, as well as any new courses that we have coming up. So we're going to transition into talking about some of our major professional learning this summer. And the first one is our work with HQI Live. And I want to start off just talking about why is HQI Live so important to the work that we do here in Milford. First of all, we talk so much about the importance, you've heard Dr. Kataya mention this several times, about the need to make sure that we have a common model and a shared vision for how we talk about instruction across all of our classrooms in the district. And this is really that kind of culminating opportunity where teachers are coming together, they're looking at instruction in real time, and we're having dialogue around not just the theory, but how we take all of those strategies and turn them into practice. So with that being said, I'm going to let this amazing group of educators tell you a little bit about HQI Live and the work over the summer. So I'm going to turn it over to Alicia, Hannah, and Amanda.
Hello. So I had the privilege this summer of teaching elementary literacy at HQI Live. So I took our bookworms curriculum. I taught ELA writing, shared reading, and had an ASA block for second graders. We really, with the help of a coach, I was able to really choose a culminating task from bookworms, so an authentic task that our students actually do in our classrooms, and plan with that coach based on the standards and the student data that we had. The very impactful part was this was a true representation of a Milford classroom. So I walked in on that, actually they walked into me on that first day. I had never met one child walked in that door before, which was pretty amazing. And between my coach and I, we were able to meet their needs. We built relationships with them. We used formative assessment. We got to just know who they were, and knowing the curriculum and what was expected at the end, we were able to meet their needs.
And just to piggyback on what Amanda said, I did similar, so I taught a fourth grade illustrative math or IM lesson, a curriculum unit. The first 5 lessons of that unit over the course of the week, I also did not know the students in the classroom. It was really important to showcase how, just with working with a coach and planning for instruction, we were able to build relationships, have high expectations, and take a really scripted curriculum, but applied our model of high quality instruction and instructional strategies to that content and really provide engaging lessons for our kids.
And then after our students left, we were able to have teachers come in for a debrief. And it was very powerful for them to be able to hear the coaches and my thinking. So I was very vulnerable. We were very vulnerable. If things were great, it was wonderful. If things didn't go as planned, we were able to reflect on that. They were able to ask questions or hear about purposeful planning that we had done, deliberate planning for like some misconceptions or thinking about the students that were in front of us, and that, you know, the coach and I had many conversations to plan to get ready for the next day. During the teaching, they actually saw our practice in the moment, whether it was really great or if there were some things that were happening, bloody noses, it was really real life. But then at the debrief, they really heard our reflections. on my teaching, but also the students' learning. And then really, we're able to hear how I might plan for the next day based on what happened that day.
Very similar. There was a lot of questions about what data and what observations we were collecting in the moment with the students, and how we maybe had planned the lesson versus what actually happened in real time, how we kind of modified or adjusted in the moment, and then how we took what we learned from that day to plan for the next day. And not only were they able to hear that from us, it also allowed me to reflect on my own practice during that time and think about how I could maybe tweak things to be better for those students later.
And then I had the opportunity to be part of the adult facilitation team and facilitate a pathway. So the pathways are different instructional practices that teachers get to dive in deeper with. So in the morning, we have our grounding learning and research, HQI model as a whole group, and then teachers go into classrooms, watch the lessons, the debrief, and then in the afternoon, they go to a pathway, which they get to choose which one, which I think is a great opportunity for teachers to reflect and decide what they would like to learn more about. So you can see from the slide the different choices we had this year for the pathway. And I think something that's unique as well is teachers facilitated the pathways. So myself and two of my colleagues, for our pathway, I did the goal setting for students. We developed the learning, we picked articles, videos, and we're able to have professional conversations with our peers, and they learn from us, and then we learn just as much from them with their questions and concerns. And then from the pathway, digging in deeper, teachers then were able to look for those specific things in the classrooms and code sheets of observations that they were able to gather from watching the lessons. So I think the really powerful thing about HQI Live is that you get the full breadth of professional development using the expertise that Milford has already. It's created by teachers in partnership with the instructional supervisor team, and it's done for the teachers, and teachers are part of every step of the way. So I think that's the most powerful part. And myself as a learner, the experience was invaluable because, again, as a facilitator, you just get to go an extra step deeper and dive in a little bit more and plan meaningful learning.
Thank you, ladies. So the other piece that's strongly connected to our HQI Live work is we have the exciting opportunity over the last 6 to 7 months or so to begin to develop our next framework, so the next version of our framework for high quality instruction. And we assembled a steering team of teachers, teacher leaders, administrators, coaches, all working together to create and launch this exciting new framework. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Emily and Viv to talk a little about their experience on the HQI Vision 3.0 steering team.
Guys, thank you for letting us be here tonight. It was really amazing to be part of these teams. The team that was constructed for this HQI Vision 3 steering team was collected from all of the schools in the district. We also had our instructional supervisors there with us, and Steve as well. So it was a really great opportunity for the teachers to have an opportunity to look at what was working really well with our previous model of HQI and how to make that more understandable for teachers and also students. We know that the previous model was full of really, really valuable information, but it wasn't necessarily accessible for everybody, and that is something that we strive for in the district for our students, and it has become something that we want to make sure is really evident with our teachers as well. This was curated with a lot of that previous design in mind, and we wanted to make sure that we were using relevant research, so we were thinking about this visual framework with a story in mind.
Sure. So So, as said before, we were taking the models that we had already had with version 1 and version 2 and kind of adding on to it. And this team kind of had to reimagine what was needed in the current environment. And as we all know, we're always working towards refining our craft, and what the target of what we need to teach right now is going to always change as we go along into finding more and more about what kids need in the moment. And so as we kind of started, I think Dr. Altieri really talked about how do we tell the story of Milford? How do you tell the story of the education that's happening in Milford, what we're doing, how we're going to follow this high quality instruction, and what our goals as a complete district really are. As a group, we got to work together, have conversations about what our framework was, what we kind of liked from the old model, and what we kind of wanted to bring into the new model. A lot of the details that we had were conversations with teachers, whether it be at HQI Live when they had when they kind of unveiled it to the group. There was a lot of discussion between every single group that kind of brought more and more of Milford into this new vision that we're working on in terms of an instructional framework. And the story kept growing as we kept collecting the voices of Milford to create this new model that we really are looking to.
So it did start out with a lot of planning based on grounding materials that we've been using throughout the past year of learning for our educators. So it wasn't new information. We're not doing some magical new transformation. This is all important learning that we are grounded in within the district. And that started to develop into a more simplistic design. And then with the feedback of everyone at HQI, we were really able to take that information and put it into a way that's going to, we feel, is going to be easiest for our educators and any other staff. Any single person within the district should be able to pick up this document and know what our values are within the district for our students and for our staff. So that was one of our main goals in doing that. And the great thing about it is that we're not done at the current model that we've come to. We get to unveil that for the entire district this week, and we get to continue to make changes to that as we continue to get input. So the biggest part of this is that all of the voices in our district are a part of it. It's not something that's coming from the top down. Everyone is included in it, and I think that that's one of the most important parts, especially since the teachers and the other staff are the ones on the floor with the kids every single day.
Thank you both. Appreciate that. We also want to give a little update. Obviously, last week feels like so long ago, but it wasn't that long ago. We welcomed over 50 new educators to our MTA, which is a collaboration between our Teaching and Learning Department and TMD. And just a few notes. We really try to make this an immersive experience for teachers. So we have opportunities. Our supervisor team did an amazing job at facilitating some workshop sessions where teachers really got immersed in our frameworks, whether it was the developmental relationships framework or HQI. They dive into curriculum in the district. They unpack our curriculum. They really get into, Mr. Giancola did a session where teachers actually got to get in and start to work within many of our technology platforms to build some of that comfort. And new this year, we actually tried a new teacher panel. So you'll notice bottom pictures, the two bottom pictures. Those are some of our seasoned educators, including Hannah, who was one of our panelists. And we asked them a series of questions about what they love about Milford. What should they experience in the community? What are the events? We really want teachers, Dr. Morrow and Ms. Corrado led a game of Milford Jeopardy with our teachers to think about some of the trivia of the history of our community. So really trying to connect our teachers, not only just to Milford Public Schools, but why working in Milford is a special place altogether. So I do want to bring us back to, while we talk about summer professional learning, and there was a lot that went on, whether it was elementary social studies, work with MTSS, there's a lot of other professional learning outside of these major topics that we talked about. And this work carries us into the year. And I want to remind the board the importance of professional learning. Just like any other profession, whether doctors or lawyers, education is continuously changing. There's new strategies. Kids learn differently. We learn more about how the brain processes information. So we're consistently having to think about and build and adapt. You heard Emily and Viv talk a little about V3, how the strategies continue to evolve. We need to do the same thing with education. And we need to think about multiple modalities for how teachers learn. So we continue to refine our systems for professional learning. Okay, we call this our teaching and learning subsystems. And these occur not only in our Wednesday PL structures, but also our early release time. And you'll notice as you kind of glance at the document, we have time for teachers to dig into HQI strategies and apply that to their own teaching in the moment, in the next day or so. How are you going to take what you learned and apply that to your own teaching? Our early release days, we really want to make sure that we tie content and strategy to student work. Last year we introduced our student work analysis protocol, which got teachers looking at, in the moment, how do we take not only our big data, but also some of our in the moment data, and be able to think about how we shift our practice in teaching to support student need. And then we also are continuing with our teacher support networks, and we believe that this is professional learning time where buildings can set a focus to HQI, and the teachers can actually pick a format. Whether it is they're undergoing some type of a virtual professional learning together and talking about it during the time. They are visiting each other's classrooms and then coming back together on the TSN time to be able to talk about strategy. So we give some options for teachers to really customize that PL time for something that they're interested in. So I'm happy to take any questions from the board, and as you'll notice, we had our biggest season of HQI Live this summer. Thank the board members who were able to be there in attendance. We appreciate you coming out to support us. You'll notice that we've formed the number 7 this year. I think next year when we do season 8, it's going to be a little more challenging to take that off on the floor, but we had a team who got down there and they broke out the painter's tape and got that marked off. So over 140 educators this year throughout the week. So we are going to continue to build upon that this year as well.
Thank you, Dr. Arteri. And thank you to the staff that have come out on your very end of your summer to be with us. We appreciate it. Do you have questions from the board? Yes, Ms. Edmonds.
First, I wanted to say thank you because I was one of the board members who had the privilege of attending for a day and teaching a brand new group of students. A lesson plan, a high quality lesson plan is hard enough just on your own in a classroom, let alone with 30 other people watching. So seriously, thank you so much to the teachers who led the lessons. I learned a lot. I got goosebumps just now because it was just really impressive. And the looking at the faces of the people in the room and how it was inspiring others was cool to see. I also took away a better understanding of what the coach role is, and seeing the coach in action and how they support with data collection in the moment was pretty cool, and I think unique to the experience of being there. So other board members, highly recommend if you have a chance to go next year. My questions, I do have a couple short questions, if you don't mind. Sure. One of them is leadership involvement. So I know that in the morning of the first day, I was really excited to see so many school leaders present. Having been in a lot of PDs where there were no leaders there and just, staff, I think it was really heartening to see how many were participating. I was wondering what the next steps are for school principals after attending HQI Live. Of course, teachers are going out and using those practices. What are the kind of action items recommended coming out of that for the leadership?
That's a question. So the work that we did during the pathways in the morning We tried to take what they were doing in the adult learning pathway with teachers and think about it from a leadership lens. So, for instance, one of the big areas that we are looking to dive into this year is student agency. And we found out very early that we all had close but subtle differences in how we defined agency. And we spent some time during the HQI Live Week defining that. And we were able to bring that into our August retreat and do some work around not only how do we define agency, but members of the team wanted to push even further and talk about what are we seeing when we go into classrooms? You know, what are those look-fors? What are those moments where we know that students are taking ownership of their learning? So we continue to have those conversations when we meet as a leadership team. And then obviously principals are beginning to work on their school improvement goals for the year. And one of the HQI goals I'm hearing a lot about right now is starting that work of agency with staff and thinking about how can we create those opportunities for students in the classroom. So I know as we meet with principals, we're having those discussions one-on-one, we're walking with principals. Those are, you know, we continue to push that at various levels.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
Second question, what was the driver behind updating the framework from 2.0 to 3.0? Was there, were you running into an issue with the 2.0 that it wasn't meeting the needs, or was it just time for an update?
No, I think we've seen our thinking expand as we've learned new research. There's been things that have come out in the field of education over the last 4 years. V2 has served us really well. I mean, it's something that's grounded our professional learning for the last 4 school years. We've started to learn more about student agency. We've learned more about the way that we question students, informative assessment, and we're thinking about ways to continue to evolve the language in our model so it reflects our learning. But then, as you know, we've grounded our professional learning in V2 over the last 4 years. So we're now thinking about how do we now push our thinking down the road for the next 4 years. So basically updating, freshening it so that way we have professional learning that we're going to build upon up through. I'm aiming for 2030 just because that seemed like a good timeline in the road to think about V4.
Okay. Easy to remember too.
Yeah.
And this is the last question I have, and you may have answered this already. So I know we've seen the curriculum review process before, and that it's 7 years long. Does that, and you mentioned that there are 300-ish.
About 300
curricula?
courses in district, yeah.
Okay, so all of those 300 courses are somewhere in the 7-year process.
Correct. So what we do is we create our process, which the team worked over the last 18 months or so to design our next process. So hopefully at some point this year, I'll have that to be able to share with you. But we looked at just providing some more clarity to the steps, especially as we get into like years 4 through 7. There's a lot of redundancy and overlap, and sometimes it gets confusing to know where you are in the process. And obviously with COVID, we saw COVID put a pause in a lot of the work that we were doing, and that threw kind of our 7-year timeline off. So we're looking at bringing that down to a 5-year timeline, and now giving some flexibility in that some courses we've mapped out to maybe be longer at phase 2 and phase 3, because it requires more time for assessment development and building the units. So we've given some more flexibility to be responsive to each course depending on what it is. But we actually have a map of every single course within all of our disciplines, and we actually have it mapped out for each year. So we're able to figure out where we are in the process. We're able to look at making sure that we're not having this year where we have this huge budgetary increase, being able to spread that out over time, and make sure that we are continuously coming back to and doing those program reviews to see what's changed with regards to the courses and the standards.
That's cool. Does that, for the slide that you shared with the courses that were being reviewed this summer, or that you were working on this summer, were those mostly year 2, like writing cycle?
So
Or is it mixed?
most are somewhere between years 2 and 5. So that systemic implementation, the revision of implementation guides. A lot of the work was done to enhance implementation guides. Some of the new courses, we have a true crimes narrative course, which is a secondary course that we just created this year. So a lot of that was developing the scope and sequence and starting to build the curriculum maps. We have an AP cybersecurity course, which is new this year. So depending on a new course, those were kind of phase 1 to phase 2, and then most falls in that year 3 to year 5 in that range.
Thank you
You're welcome.
so much.
If I could just piggyback off of one point with Ms. Edmonds, her second question about the impetus to update the framework.
Mhm.
So one of the teachers mentioned that the current version was not accessible for everyone.
So,
Can you expand on that a little bit?
yeah,
Give an
so
example?
we're thinking about ways, for instance, art, music, PE, health. Sometimes where it's not a core course, where you're thinking about formative assessment,
Okay.
or you're thinking about student agency. Most, if you're thinking about PE and health, logically, kids are coming in for class. It feels very student-centered, but is that truly ownership of the learning? So we're trying to make sure that every educator feels their connection. But this isn't just a math, science, social studies. This is everybody, including our paraeducators who support student instruction in classrooms every day. Just like we see with our developmental relationships framework, our equity framework. HQI is one of our core documents, and that's something that everybody who comes in embraces and puts their support behind.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a couple more questions, but I want to see if anybody else has any questions. Ms. Doyle?
Thank you. Thank you for HQI and being able to attend. It was great to see in action in that way. So you had the Milford Teacher Academy last week. How are they exposed to HQI in that first meeting, or how are they exposed over the period of time?
Yeah, so Ms. Capaz and I actually facilitated the first session called Know Your Impact, and we did a little bit on thinking about your best teacher and your worst teacher, and what made your best teacher your best teacher. And one of the things that we latched onto right away was thinking about common messaging and how we have a shared belief for what every student should experience in their classrooms. And that's important because we're defining from the moment a student walks into kindergarten to the minute they graduate from here, what we feel that every student should have the opportunity to experience. So we dove into, one of the first things we talked about was V2. We haven't shown them V3 yet because they're going to see that tomorrow in their buildings. And then the team did work around the developmental relationships framework. I brought that in later in the day. So they see our frameworks on the first day of Milford Teacher Academy.
And then, is the Milford Teacher Academy different this year in comparison to some of the things we've done before? I don't remember.
I mean, the core elements stay the same. I think we're always trying to improve, just like everything else we do, we're trying to dream and innovate and make it the best experience for our teachers. We want them to come in here and be excited. We want them to, I think Wendy and I, we did a closing on the first day, and one of the teachers put their hand up, who was a veteran teacher who was new to us, and said what she experienced was nothing like she's ever had before. Just the fact that she got to know district leaders. I think Wendy, she described it as, I'd been in a district and never met the superintendent or assistant superintendent. And here they are in the room, talking to us, working with us, they're in sessions with us. So I think we try to continue to make it not only immersive, but build those relationships and let them know that we are, just like their schools, we're here to support them throughout.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I was wondering, so I wasn't able to go to HQI Live this year. I was really, really disappointed because I've always found it to be such an authentic, real classroom experience, and I just think that's very unique. So our new Teacher Academy is unique, but HQI Live in the summer is unique too. Were the afternoon pathways, was that new this year, or was that done in the past?
Last year was the first year that we tried the pathways. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, so this was year 2. And we expanded a little bit just based on sole number of participants, making
Uh-huh.
sure the sessions didn't get too big.
Okay. I have a question for teachers. I'm going to really put you on the
Go
spot.
for it.
Do you feel that you have enough professional development time in Milford with the half days and your Wednesdays and the two?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Thanks. That's it for me. Anybody else? All right. Thank you again for being here. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules and the end of your summer.
Thank you, board members.
See you all on
Thank you.
publication day.
We'd like to move to the next item on the agenda, and that is the food service financials report. And I'm going to actually first turn it over to Mr. Brennan so he can do an introduction.
Thank you, Dr. Mattia, Ms. Glennon, members of the board. First off, I want to take a moment to thank and congratulate Ms. Eileen Faustich for her 30 years of service to Milford Public Schools and for everything she's done for our food service program. We wish her the best in retirement and can't thank her enough for everything she's done. On an also bright note, we have hired Miss Erica Biagetti here for our new first food service director, and we are equally as excited for Mrs. Biagetti and her work that's upcoming. Ms. Biagetti is actually not a new face to Milford Public Schools, as she began her career as the assistant food service director back some years ago, and then had progressed to food service director for Guilford and for most recently Cheshire. We're really excited that Ms. Biagetti is here. She's already jumped in, both feet first, and we are very excited to see the work that she's going to be accomplishing in our district. So thank you, Ms. Biagetti, and welcome to Milford Public Schools.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you, members of the board. Yes, I'm very excited to return. It was a great experience when I was here before, so I'm happy to continue that. We were just talking about development and returning. Why Milford? As I come back 12 years later, it's wonderful. So I'm here today to present for the 25-26 financials. So you do have those with you. If you have any questions about them, going over just some of the topics, there was an operational loss. What I do want to transition to a little bit more, since this is my third week, and I wasn't here for the 25-26 school year, but I'm more excited for the 26-27 school year, and looking forward to what we have in front of us. And just really I've got to visit a few schools over the past 2 weeks, and I'm looking forward to get to see all 14 again. I mainly worked on Jonathan Law before, so I'm very familiar with law, but now I get to go see everyone else. And getting to learn the operations in this first year, understanding meeting students, meeting staff, learning from the leadership team and the principals there, and getting a real understanding for what's driving Milford's food service, what you're looking for in the future, and how we can build this program together and be able to take it to that next level and try some different menu options. I know some focuses for me include increasing our farm to school program, bringing in more local items, getting to have those out, doing taste tests with the students, getting them out there and trying things, as well as, if you all probably know, there's a great central kitchen at Jonathan Law, so having that be able to produce more local foods as well as some recipes and more items that are from scratch, so we can have students trying more variety and building the menu offerings, including quality and variety, giving them more choices that they'll have every day and seeing those. So I'm really looking forward to learning that and building it over the next 8 months. And then I'm sure you will all see me back in March when we talk about healthy food certification. So I'll have much more extensive things to speak on that after I get a few more days, months, learning and transitioning. But I really do appreciate the opportunity and to join this team. I'm very excited for everything to come. Oh, and breakfast is free for everyone next year, as well as reduced lunch is as well free. That's very exciting. Breakfast is always a great thing to offer. And if anyone has any questions?
We have questions for Ms. Biagetti? Ms. Doyle?
Thank you. Welcome to the district. That is actually the first time I've heard about the central kitchen at Law.
Oh.
And so the fact that we have a central kitchen, so what does that entail? What is the impact of that? Like, how does the super high level,
Yeah.
what does that mean?
So the central kitchen at Law is pretty much a large warehouse facility where we're able to buy and store food for a little bit longer, especially for schools that are smaller. Like I was over at Calf Pen, another one, they don't have the storage facilities to be able to hold the amount of food for a week. So the food is then stored at Jonathan Law and then transported to them daily. So this way they're able to not have to worry about having enough storage on site to keep all of the menu items, and we're able to house it there and then deliver it to all of the schools. So they get their food the day before for the next day and various items throughout the week. I know that only because I worked at Central Kitchen. That was my first job.
So,
Is that the, so
The large outdoor
the large
fridge and
outdoor,
freezer.
that's what she's referring to?
Yes.
got it,
Our term for it is Central Kitchen.
got it. But Law also has ovens and actually cooks things
It has cooking equipment, correct.
in comparison to some that just have heating
Warming station.
and
No,
warming.
to my knowledge, I haven't been to every school, but they all have ovens and they all cook on site, on property. Nothing is made and then delivered in the sense of our term is what we would call satellite. So everything is prepared on site of all the schools.
Okay. All right, thank you.
No problem.
That was not my understanding. I thought most of it was warming. No?
It is warming. There are things that are shipped, but each school does have an oven to warm
But
up.
you've been in the kitchens, there's
Yes, they're
not
very small.
Yeah.
from
Very
scratch
small.
cooking
Yes.
for 300 people,
Except for
there
pumpkin.
isn't, yeah.
Right.
Nobody's rolling out the pasta dough, right?
It makes lots of
No,
smoothies
no.
though.
It's only week 3, I'm not there yet.
Yes, we can, that's a good point. We can make lots of smoothies. So, are we gonna have smoothies this year? Do they still have the
Yes.
smoothies? So, I hear they were a big hit,
There
so.
might be two.
Yes.
The operational deficit,
Mhm.
in the past, it really hasn't been that consequential, so there's still, what I remember Ms. Faustich explaining that there's some reserve money that,
Yes. So there is, my goal going forward is to build our participation. I know having the free breakfast is definitely going to help bring in additional revenue sources and to be able to limit that loss as much as we possibly can so that we can be at least, if not break even or slightly profitable. Any funds that we do have, we like to have them so that we can buy and increase our cooking equipment, getting new ovens, more options, convection combi ovens, something that can do steaming as well as cooking. So that is my goal, is looking into the future and kind of building that participation and options that way for revenue sources.
Ms. Edmonds?
I'm gonna try to make this make sense,
No,
and you can help me if I'm not making sense. So, for the net profit loss, is
Yes.
that primarily due to the fact that we're making a lot of food and we don't have the participation numbers, so it's kind of, it's not all being eaten? Or is it because the recipes we're using cost more than the reimbursement?
So just
Or
looking
both.
at it, no, that's a great question. Just looking at it without being in the operations and seeing them first, like hands-on, I would look at it mostly, it's just because your overhead is higher than your revenue source. So you're staffing the 14 buildings and how many meals are coming out of them, you need to increase that participation so that we can then be able to have a stronger revenue stream so that we offset the cost of goods and food. As we all know, food costs and labor costs have gone up between minimum wage and food overall. So we're just trying to counterbalance those costs increasing with what we can do in pricing and structures and offerings and a la carte sales to have a lot of variety available to our students.
Thank you.
No problem. Ms. Doyle, if that.
Thank you. So for free breakfast, are they doing, again, per meal dollar reimbursement?
So for free breakfast, the state of Connecticut gives the reimbursement back based on the free breakfast price. So we get $4 and, we have $2.54 for breakfast. We will get that reimbursement back through RISE funds through the state of Connecticut. So Lamont gives the money in the budget this past year to fuel that, as well as the 40 cents that parents would have, 30 cents, I apologize, I keep going to lunch, 30 cents for breakfast that reduced families would have had to have paid. So they're covering both of those costs. So it is great because then we do get that higher volume, which the $2.54 is a stronger reimbursement than the price of the high school breakfast. So our high school breakfast is only $2.50, the $2.54 for free is 4 cents above that, which is always great.
And then, because what is the reimbursement rate for the other meals? Like 40 cents, 10 cents?
For
reduced lunch or reduced
so reduced
serving?
lunch is 30 cents minus the $2.54. So the 30 cents is what the families have to incur, is the difference between that free price and that reduced. And then the paid meals are offset by 54 cents at lunch and 47 cents at 45 cents at breakfast and 47 cents at lunch. And that's what we get back from them based on the reimbursement structure for this upcoming school year.
Right, so basic,
Yeah.
to feed
No,
a
it's
child a meal for $2.50
Yes.
is very difficult when you factor
Yes.
everything in.
It's about the same price as a small cup of coffee at Dunkin' Donuts, give or take. No creams, like, there's no sweeteners, there's no, like, it's double pumpkin spice chocolate.
Yeah, thank you, because I do remember when
Yeah.
during COVID, like COVID, post-COVID, with all the free meals that we had, especially through the USDA and the reimbursement rates, were incredibly beneficial to the program.
Very helpful.
I mean, I think the reimbursement was like $3.50 at some point.
Yes, they upped us to a very nice, very high rate.
Right, and so we were able to have that surplus, which then we were able to do all the investment
Mhm.
in there and where we are currently, because I think it's 3 months running total, we're allowed to.
Yes,
is this-
yep, the state of Connecticut allows you to have an operating budget maintaining 3 months.
Ms. Edmonds?
Is the unpaid meals line item in our operating budget reflected anywhere here, or is that completely separate because the district is covering?
So that is completely separate. So the unpaid meal debt by state law is required to get picked up by the Board of Education. It is not allowable to come out of the school food service operating budget. There was in the COVID years, previous years, where I believe that you did take advantage of a waiver that was available. That waiver has not been extended in certain years past. But it is, the reimbursement back to us is depicted in here in revenues back in cash and credit receipts.
I'm not sure, I'm sorry, maybe, I don't know who to ask this question to, but with the new policy in place covering breakfast, can you speak to how much of our unpaid meals line item was coming from breakfast?
I wouldn't be able to say how much of it was set forth like just breakfast alone. I do know that if you have breakfast, that does help and reduce that amount of cost that families would have had going to negative balance if it was in that. But I wouldn't be able to say exactly how much. But we do hope that it would deter, and it is a savings for families directly. So hopefully that'll help reduce the negative balance in the upcoming school year.
Thank you. Again.
Great questions. No, thank you very much.
Other questions?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Sorry, just piggybacking on Ms. Edmonds. Well, first I want to say welcome.
Thank you.
You have a really beautiful smile. So, and I love your excitement. So,
do love school food.
I don't know if this is just piggybacking. You actually, Ms. Edmonds, asked part of my question. So thank you. Do you know what our outstanding unpaid balance ended up being? Because I feel like that's a district question.
I think it was $71,000.
So it didn't change much from the.
It would have been whatever was on that last quarterly report.
That last report, and I believe it was
The
71 or
July
72,000 off the top of my head.
Yes, I do believe so.
I was one of those parents that was waiting because I didn't want to pay the credit card fee. So I was waiting to pay it at the end. So I was curious if it was going to shift at all. Ended up writing a check. So I was just wondering if it changed.
Ms. Edmonds, also, I think what will help with that balance is reduced lunches are free to families for those people who qualify for reduced. So that is a portion of that balance that we see. So both the strategy of free breakfast and free for free and reduced will, I think, help. Fingers crossed.
I know in previous meetings we've spoken about the challenge of getting families to sign the form to get that benefit. And the I think it was you, Dr. Patai, who mentioned that the district has made it a priority and kind of focused on how to increase that number. With the school year starting, are we starting to see those forms come in? How's that going?
Yeah, this is the time of year that we get those applications in. I think it's too early for us to have an assessment on how that compares to last year. There is a hesitancy in our climate to complete any forms and be forthcoming about certain private and confidential items. So we still navigate that with our families.
Do the social workers, sorry, this is my last question about that. Do the social workers at the schools support that process?
Yes, they do.
Absolutely.
They do.
Yeah.
I
So
think
our, the whole team does, school counselors, so the beauty of our community is that we really know our families, right? And so if we see a balance ticking up, there is conversation with the principal, the school counselor, social worker, school psych, whomever it might be, a touch point for that family. So whether they complete it now or if we see a balance in December, you can complete it any time. So there's an outreach. And in that way, it would be, hey, this would be helpful to you. You know, we noticed this. Why don't we consider this? So it is a strategy that's considered throughout the year.
Thank you.
I'll say too that, correct me if I'm wrong, but the income thresholds are federally determined. And
They
it's
are.
the same throughout the entire United States of America. And I've had this conversation with Rosa DeLauro many times, that that needs to be regionalized, because what's a hardship here in the East Coast and what's a hardship in the West are very different. And you have, the income threshold is really, really, it's high. So, it's not low, it's the opposite of what you think it would be. You have to really, for a family of four, it's a really,
42,900 pre-tax.
Right.
So you have to gross less than 42,900 to qualify for free meals, and you have to be less than $61,050. That's in a household of four. It doesn't matter if it's a single, double, or triple income. That is what the entire household has to have less than to be able to qualify. So for a lot of families, and it's to Dr. Takai's point, it's working with them, getting to know them. There's only so much that the application can do, and unfortunately there are those families who are just like on that threshold that don't qualify and still do need assistance. So we're always trying to reach out and help them.
And not even on the threshold. If you're talking a family of four and your household income is $65,000, that's hard to put food on the table at home. So it's ridiculously low.
I
And it has not been
agree.
adjusted.
Yeah, for this part,
In my over a decade in school nutrition,
Yeah.
we have argued these income thresholds in the state of Connecticut over and over. It's the same if you're at a $7.98 minimum wage, where in Connecticut we're at $17.48 going in. It's just apples and oranges to have the same amount of income across the entire US.
But we feed any child.
Always.
We don't withhold meals. Child is hungry, regardless of balance or money in the account, we feed children.
Yeah, that's my whole job.
Yes. So, any other questions? Do you have anything else you wanted to share with us?
No, I just want to thank the board and everyone, and I'm just looking forward to the year.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Back over to Dr. Altieri, we have an action item, Ms. Glennon and board members, which is a regular action item to consider and accept a grant award. So I'll turn things over to Dr. Altieri.
Sure. Each year, as part of our continuation of our Family Resource Center program here in Milford, the state requires that we reapply and gain board approval for acceptance of our grant funds. This year, Milford is being awarded a grant in the amount of $122,600, and that will support our FRC program, staff, as well as supplies and materials.
Do we have questions before we have a motion?
No, Mary Glenson.
Yes.
How does that compare to last year?
I'd have to look and just see what last year's was. I don't have that information offhand.
Is it higher, lower, just?
I can.
Yeah, I don't need
I
an
can look,
exact
yeah.
number, I was curious if it's like around the same.
I can look, yeah.
You have a motion while we're waiting?
Sure. I make a motion that the Board of Education approve the CSDE grant for the Milford Family Resource Center in the amount of $122,600 for the fiscal year 2026 to 2027.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Tedros. Are there any other questions or discussion on the need for that? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
So Ms. Edmonds, the amount of the grant last year was $111,363. So it's about $11,000 increase.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item, preliminary enrollment report.
I'm gonna go review, sorry, we were looking up the grant number and I moved all my papers. So if you could please reference the enrollment report in your packet, board members. So this is a very, very preliminary enrollment report. School hasn't even started, and Mr. Giancola just notified me right before this meeting that we had 11 new students registered today. So we're grateful for that, but there are still families continuing to either move to town or suddenly realize school's this week and registering their children. So the true report will be the one that I review with you that is taken on October 1st. So this is preliminary in nature. So I'll first tell you that at this time we have enrolled 5,058 students in our school system. Last year we had 5,127 students on October 1st enrollment of 2025. That demonstrates a 69 student decrease from year to year. If you were to break that down by level, we have 9 more elementary students than we did a year ago in October. And we have 22 fewer middle schoolers and 56 fewer high schoolers. I'm sure on your mind you're wondering why so few high school students compared to last year. I'll bring your attention to the freshman class on this enrollment sheet, and you'll notice that the freshman class is significantly lower than the other classes. So you're looking at 338 freshmen this year, compared to the other grades at the high school, 365, 354, and 402. So you're looking at this one class. We knew a couple, 3 years ago when they became 6th graders, like, whoa, okay, this is the smallest class coming through. And we saw that in the middle school class sizes, actually. So you will see, if you want to start looking at trend, you can actually go all the way to kindergarten. And you'll see that the incoming kindergarten class actually is a little bit bigger than, and much more in line with your typical grade level class size. So you could run through kindergarten through 5th, you'll see 391 kindergartners, and you see that dip down to 353. So that might be another year where in 8 years, when they are entering freshman year, you'll see a smaller high school population. So you could do some predictive mathematics there if you take a look at the sizes that are running through the system. This is a bit higher than we were projecting. In the budget book, we based our budget on projections of 5,042 students, and we are, as I said, sitting at 5,058. Some of the individual school surprises at this time: there are 15 fewer CAF Penn students than last year, and over at Orchard Hills, there are 11 more Orchard Hills students than last year. But those are the biggest number shifts. Everything else was pretty much stable. Happy to take any questions that you may have at this time. Again, noting this is preliminary.
I assume, even though we've had 11 new students registered today, there still could be students that are unwithdrawn. Is that the right way between now and?
I would say that we are pretty good on the withdrawal. Our secretaries at the elementary level have been back at the office for a week or two. And parents that are moving out of town usually are touching base with their schools. That's probably more part of a rhythm of a move. And we get records requests over the summer. And we have a very streamlined withdrawal process. I'm looking at Mr. Giancola because he oversees that. So would it be safe to say that we probably have taken care of all of our withdrawals?
Yeah, because we normally, like, same with us, when somebody registers today, we would request records from that school.
Immediately, yeah.
So we know pretty much immediately.
There would not be a mass exodus
No,
of kids
not at
who
this
have moved
point.
over the summer.
We're more likely to
So
get
withdrawals
another
are more
10
stable.
kids, we're more likely to get another 10 kids in 2 days than we are to
Right.
lose 10 kids.
Okay, good.
And we do have a late Labor Day, so I just wonder what the impact of that will be, because we do get a little blip right after Labor Day. But Labor Day is later. It's next week. We have 5 full days, and then Labor Day. So.
Questions on the enrollment? Ms. Edmonds?
I see underneath the school names on here that it says staff for 25-26. And at the top of the report, it says 25-26.
That is incorrect. We'll get you a
Okay,
edited
I just
version.
want to make sure it's not from last year. So, my question is about the class sizes and looking at some of these average class sizes. Of course, I do see some really small ones on here, but I also see some right at 23, and that's our elementary school limit, right? 23.
In grades 3 through 5, it's 23.
Okay.
Yep.
So if one more,
If you go to Meadowside 3rd grade,
yeah,
we've been watching that since May.
and so if one more kid registers,
One more kid.
you're gonna have to add another class.
We would entertain adding a class, yes. It is much more difficult after school opens to do that. But I hate to say this, but we really need to consider the kids that are in front of us as to whether we make the decision to split the class or not. It's much more advantageous to split the class, add the section, so that you have a full year of a smaller class size. So it is highly likely that we would open another section there. We have not had to do that in my time here. We've tried to do that before school started. But Mr. Giancola, there's no indication. We've been watching this number since May.
Yeah,
No indication it's budging.
It's been solid for like 2 months now.
Yeah, and we're on the ready to issue the FTE.
Okay.
So we are committed to those class size guidelines. We do not reduce. Let's say there is a withdrawal, we don't reduce at this time. So we have a practice in the office that on July 31st, as cabinet, and Mr. Giancola does a deep analysis of the enrollment, make sure every kid is accounted for. And at that time, we make our last reduction for the 26-27 school year. So that means if a class size number went underneath and it's too small of a class, we remove the FTE. So that's the last time we do that in the summer, because principals need time for planning, and you need time to either, HR needs time to move teachers around if we do. Our rule of thumb is we will add a section into September. The closer you get to October 1st, the more disruptive it becomes for young people. So you might as well just keep the higher number. So it's general practice in the field of education.
Any other questions? Yes, Ms.
I'm
Flowers.
just curious, when is it considered too small of a class? Like how many students?
So in the research I've been able to access and the work I've done with class size, when you start getting below the number 12, it starts to become a bit ineffective.
Okay.
But in some cases, Ms. Flowers, it's you may not be able to avoid it. So pumpkin is the classic. You're not going to do one class of 23. Although you can, because in 3rd grade you do 23, right? So you have a second grade sitting there at 23. So you can make the choice to have a class size of 23 in 2nd grade, but that doesn't align with our class size guidelines for the district. Now, next year, that's a conundrum, because next year, you'll have 23 third graders, and that is the class size guideline. I'd hate to see us have a one-class grade. There's a lot of research around there where that's not effective. So now it's not just the class size research that we have to consider, it's what is it like to have just one choice in that one grade level? No partner for the adult. How do you split personalities? Like, so there's not just that one piece of data or research, there's now other things we have to consider in our decision. So hopefully we'll pick up one more second grader.
I was honestly just curious, because I didn't know if it was like 9 or something like that, so.
I can remember going back, I think it was in 2025, when we did the first round of community conversations. We broke out into small groups, and I know the group I was in for several of the different days that there were teachers from other districts that were, and we got into those conversations about, and they were very adamant that, there is such a thing as a class that's too small. And they would agree with that, having only one class in a grade is not good for the teacher's perspective as
Now, if we
well.
were a teeny tiny district like up in
Right.
Sherman, you wouldn't have much of a choice, but we're
Right.
not. Right? Ms. Flowers, I do want to circle back. The auspice that I'm talking under is elementary. I assume that's where the question was coming, targeted toward, because at the high school, the conversation becomes different. Your advanced place classes will start to become single-digit classes in some cases, and that is fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, great, thank you.
All right. Let's now take a look at long-range facilities master plan next steps. And if you will, before we get started, we thought it would be helpful to this board to review what a tentative timeline would look like. Now that we have a plan and with any type of CIP item, what do the next few months look like? So Mr. Brennan is going to go through, from our perspective, what the timeline looks like. And in some cases, entitled it tentative, board members, because sometimes this timeline or the rhythm of it changes with the mayor in the office. So this is our perception of how the timeline goes for now.
Thank you, Dr. Kataya. And yes, exactly, as Dr. Kataya mentioned, the timeline is tentative because there are certain shifts in city-led boards that would affect our actual timeline here. One of the things that we did here was try to make this as clear and as outlined as possible in the next steps specific to the JFK and Live Oaks rebuild here. So the Board of Ed, we approved in May 2026 the CIP. That's the Board of Ed approved CIP. From there, that will be submitted to the city, to the mayor specifically, and the mayor will review this, and he will submit the citywide CIP to the Planning and Zoning Board. Now from there, that not only includes Board of Ed projects, but also includes city-based projects from all the departments that are pushing forward capital expenses to the mayor for his approval. That typically would happen in December of 2026. And from there, Planning and Zoning Board would recommend a citywide CIP, which once again includes both Board of Ed projects and city projects, to the Board of Aldermen for adoption of the plan. I think it's an important distinction at this point that there's no funding committed to the projects at this time. It's more of the plan in concept, and that's a very important distinction. The funding itself is not approved at this time, it's just the plan. From there, the Board of Finance would consider bonding requests, which also occurs simultaneous to the Board of Aldermen adopting the plan in concept. The Board of Finance, in that same time frame, December to January, would consider the bonding requests for the city CIP. Once it's approved through the Board of Finance, it would then go to the Board of Aldermen at some point in January, February. And from there, if the CIP and bonding are approved, that's when the projects are assigned to the Permanent Schools Facilities Building Committee. So the projects are turned over to Permanent Schools at that point. and there are some resolutions that actually the aldermen take the project and assign it to the permanent schools to see it all the way through to the different steps. That typically would occur in March. From there, permanent schools would hire an architect through an RFP process. So they would put out, for whatever project it may be, this one's specific to the building of new schools, they would release a request for qualifications and a request for proposals. Those proposals would be out for some time, some length of time, typically 3 to 4 weeks. At that point, the respondents would come back in and permanent schools would interview the different architects who are bidding on this job, and they would select an actual architect to oversee the project. That timeline occurs through typically in March through May of 2027, and that is an extensive process. That's why that window's such a few month span, because it really depends on the overview of the process. There's a process within the process that requires us to have a request for information where the architects are allowed to ask questions, clarifying questions. So the process becomes a little lengthy. From there, ED specifications are developed as a collaboration between the architect and Milford Public Schools. And that would typically, for this timeline, would go from April to June of 2027. ED specifications would then be approved by the Board of Ed sometime between April and June. And concurrently, so we in the CIP of last year, approved the architect funding for this project, architecture and engineering part of the project. So now, in this upcoming May/June, we would be approving the construction costs for that project. And throughout the next year, the architect would help develop the plans, specifications, and estimates, and those would be approved by both the Permanent Schools Committee and also the Board of Education. And that timeline that we have listed here as a tentative date would be the March through May of 2028. At that time, we would be ready to submit all of these different documents and approvals through the state application website and the Connecticut State Department of Education, and we would be submitting the application for reimbursement by June 30th, 2028. And that's the typical, that would be a tentative timeline for the next steps with this project up until the grant application. From there, we would need to go through a plan review process with the state to make sure that all the different documents that we submitted have met all the different guidelines that they're looking for. And from there, we would put a shovel in the ground and construct the building.
So the construction, just to clarify, step 10, the construction costs, so that's it gets confusing because that's a second CIP step
Yes.
that we're taking, because we're splitting up the architectural and design work into one CIP request, bonding request, and then the second piece would be the actual construction costs.
And then you could almost think of that step 10 as an arrow that goes back up to step 2.
Right.
And we don't have to hire an architect.
We don't have to hire an architect, but we would still have to go through it being approved on the Planning and Zoning and Board of Aldermen as a project as a whole, and then we'd have to go to Board of Finance and Board of Aldermen again for the funding.
So I think there might be even a last step. The project is submitted to the Connecticut State Department of Education for reimbursement June. That's the June 30th.
Correct.
There's always a June 30th deadline for that.
Correct.
And it takes them, at that point, they're reviewing everything, right? And it takes a long time to
Yes.
review. And then,
Yes.
then the following legislature session is when the legislature would put us on a priority list.
So that application gets us on the priority list. Whether or not it's actually approved goes through that following year. So by June 30th, 2028, we're submitting our grant application to determine if we're going to make the priority list in that following year.
So then it's the following year when we actually, and you can't break ground until that point, after that point, right?
So
Wow.
there's an element of proceeding at risk.
Yes.
However, in order to go out for a contractor for a project this large, it would be a a good move to ensure that we have that funding.
Also, the contractor happens after this point.
The contractor would happen after that,
Right,
yes.
so, I mean, we're saying we're not gonna break ground until 2029 for
Correct.
those two schools.
Right.
The school
Correct.
year 2029 is the
Right.
start.
Mhm.
So that's
Exactly.
yet a whole nother year after the grant application goes in on June 30th, 2028.
Yeah, so that year, so once we submit in that 2028, that following year really comes with a process of the architect and Milford Public Schools working with plan review, which doesn't happen immediately. It happens typically towards a February, March timeframe, of making sure that we have all the different documents that we need.
Okay.
Can I clarify, and you can say yes or no to this? So Milford does do projects, we fund in advance. So we have the money, Milford, and then we go and get reimbursement from that side.
Correct.
So we may not know what reimbursement is, but kind of have some status or some inkling if we could by summer of 2029 break ground.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we would know if we made that priority list, correct.
Right.
And what's absent here is lobbying our legislators to put in additional language for an increased reimbursement.
So, but they would be, that process would be, they're considering the legislation in the legislation session of 2029, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
And then once we have that, then we would go out to bid for a contractor and secure that contractor and then plan to
Yeah.
break ground. And that construction would typically take about 18 to 24 months within those next 2 years, which lines up with the other document that you have on the timeline there of
Right.
being complete by 2031.
Sorry, approximately how much time from reimbursement to hearing from the state?
From
From
submitting?
submitting
Yes.
reimbursement to
It's
hearing back?
typically a year process.
It's a full year, so
A full
you
year.
probably won't hear until June of 2029.
Right.
Depending on if it's a short session or a long session, correct?
Okay.
Yes.
And then you hire a contractor.
Yes.
Okay, so in theory, you wouldn't even break ground until break ground until a few months later. So
Yeah.
when school's starting.
Correct.
Okay.
Until
So it's really the end of 2029.
It's the school year 2029, so September.
Well, I'm thinking of months. Yeah, so it's the
Right.
start of the school year, but it is near the end of 2029 is
Yeah.
when we actually would break ground.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I had a question, I just lost it. Ms. Evans?
When did the legislative session end this year?
Oh, that was it.
May 6th.
It's not quite June, it's a little earlier, I think.
This year was
Yeah.
short session.
It's a short session.
May 6th was this year.
Does a short session, does it start
It
later?
starts, nope.
It starts the same, it ends earlier?
Yes. So January 6th approximately is when it starts, and it ends May, that week in May. And then the long session is June timeframe.
And is it every other year?
Yes.
Yes.
So this year's a long
So
year.
29,
So
sorry,
29.
this year was a long year?
No, this is gonna
27
be a
is-
long year, 27.
Right, so 29 will be a long session.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think it's misleading to short versus longer. It's about a month off, so.
Yeah, I know.
They think it's all long.
Yeah.
The reason I asked was because Patrick had talked at length about prioritizing early construction during summer months when students are in session,
Mhm.
especially in these school sites where kids will be learning next to construction. And so what I'm sort of hearing, and I know we don't really know, it depends how long it takes to get a contractor and get that set up, but, you know, he talked a lot about the noise of the early foundation construction.
Mhm.
And so we're talking here about if it's starting in August or September, that would be conflicting with when school is in
Yeah.
session.
I think a couple considerations there is that we really are kind of bound by timelines that are outside of our control. And a couple ways that we can mitigate that is be ready to engage with an RFP process as soon as that passes, so there's no time delay in between getting that legislative approval and permanent schools putting that RFP out for a contractor and try to shorten that up. And then another way that we take a look at that is, are there other considerations that possibly the contractor could work outside of school hours? So we look at ways to kind of mitigate some of those different distractions per se. I think another consideration on the flip side of that is if you're having crews work outside of the normal typical hours or on weekends, that could increase costs. So it's another consideration that we have to take into account.
So we get approval in the CIP, hypothetically, right? We submit in the CIP architecture fees before we know whether we have reimbursement. So the city is agreeing to eat those costs regardless of anything that happens next. Why is it that we end up, it may be an easy answer, I just don't know it. Is there a reason why we couldn't do the same thing with the process of getting a contractor, the contractor fees in the early phase, or something along those lines to, if we're fairly certain that we're moving forward with the project, not knowing what the reimbursement will be precisely, is there a reason we couldn't put it in the CIP that we need contractor fees earlier than we would get the reimbursement?
Yeah, my understanding of the process is that we would need that commitment before we can go out to the actual RFP for a contractor. So we wouldn't be able to proceed until we have that.
That's city law? Or like what's the
Department of
policy?
Administrative Services?
State law.
Yeah,
State
Office of
law.
Grants Administration.
They don't
And I
want
could double back with that, but that's my understanding of it.
I don't think a contractor would take you on if you didn't have.
Yeah, I think for an architect, you proceeding at risk is a different kind of element because that architect needs to come on to help you complete the grant application. So it really is kind of a different perspective on it. Like, we wouldn't be able to submit a grant application without an architect because of the plans, specs, estimates, all the different design phases. We don't have the technical expertise to do that. So that's something that we need to secure in order to actually submit a grant to get on the priority list. It's not, there's no option to not be working with an architect until that's point.
so, because they have an incentive, they want to get you through it, so they get the project, that's why it's there. For, most recent for law, for that project specifically, we went to RFP, we got 3 different contractors who came in, and then it's best, least expensive qualified bid, lowest cost qualified bid is what we have to accept. There is no picking them or doing anything from that. And that contract, but they're able to get through some of like the pre-contract work done without a full contract being executed, I think, with ordering and certain other things. So there is ways to compress that when it's there to get those few weeks on site.
What's our timeline for RFPs? Like, when do we require proposals? What's the time span? Meaning, is it like a month? We open it up for a month and people apply?
3 to 4 weeks typically, depending upon the project.
So then we're looking at July that the committee's even looking at them. That's kind of shocking to me that we're building schools or renovating schools all over the state. And this is
The best process that
the
exists.
process.
Well, I think part of that is the huge corruption that occurred.
And it's gotten better, Ms. Edmonds, in the more recent years.
Yes.
DAS has
very responsive.
Been under supervision and
Very
held
helpful.
accountable and gotten better.
Is there, just more out of curiosity than anything, like, is there strategy in starting projects then in years with short sessions? Like if, if we could choose whenever, would that be a strategy?
We'd have to then deal with the local process. We'd have to shorten that. In order for us to either start this in 28 or 30, so it'd have to be an even year.
Right. We could delay again for the next year to start
We
right
could
after
delay
school
a year.
ends, but that would be increasing costs, that 3% rise in there. That's usually calculated.
So short sessions are even years?
Yes.
So we'd have to either, we wouldn't be ready by next spring of 20.
We would have to be getting the money.
Yeah.
They would have to be voting on it this winter.
So we're, in this plan that we have, we're starting on the long session every single time? Or am I misunderstanding
At this point,
that?
it does
For
look
this
that
one,
way.
but it doesn't mean it's true for all the others.
The planning on the form, it shows that on the,
Mhm, yeah.
yes. Whether that holds is the,
Right, of course.
The point, though, is that, so this project timeline is, we have to undergo this for every single project. It's not one and done. It's so, the first phase, Jonathan, JFK and Live Oaks, we have to go through this whole process. And then when we're ready for the next school, we have to go through this whole process again. So it's just this ongoing cycle of going through this process for each project. So that's how, just to illustrate how time-consuming and cumbersome it is.
And that's why school districts end up with the same floor plan for multiple schools, so that you can shorten some of this process. So if you like what you're building for Live Oaks, you might end up with 4 or 5 of them.
Because the state would already have reviewed the plans, in other words.
You might save on some architectural
Right.
fees.
And I think that's what they did historically in Milford, I don't know, 50 years ago, when they built a whole bunch of they all look, some of the schools look identical to one another. The original
That's
layout,
true.
they've had additions since then, but,
And not all districts do that. Cheshire has just built 2 brand new schools, 2 very different schools. So with that said, board members, we wanted to put this before you so that you could be better informed in discussing how you want to act next. And I know there was interest in continuing the dialogue, that it doesn't end at the time of voting and adopting a plan, that your interest in late spring was to continue the dialogue with the community and get back out into the front of the community, so that there's some synergy that continues, particularly since, if you'll know, there are quite a few hurdles still. So we have plan in hand, but we'll still need the Planning and Zoning Board to recommend the plan to the Board of Aldermen. We'll still need the mayor actually to move it forward, even before that, to make his final cut, if you will. We'll still need to inform the Board of Finance so that they can make the appropriate decision, and Board of Aldermen. So there's still quite a few passages of decision-making that are before us. So we certainly will need to inform the community about this process and these other additional steps. So we wanted you to have this so that you could dialogue this evening better informed on how to continue to engage with the community on this topic.
So we had, back in the spring, as we were going through the process of the master plan, one thing that we did, as Dr. Katai said, we continually said more than once, I think, that we have to create a coalition of parents, bring them along with us, and that would involve engagement and outreach to various groups. I had suggested over the summer to Dr. Kutaya that we might consider using open houses as a way to get into the schools and have information available for parents on this, the timeline, and this is what's next. Some board members did have some reservations about that. I did ask Dr. Kutaya I had asked a couple of PTA presidents through the council and a couple of parents who thought it was a good idea, didn't have any problem with it. But I asked Dr. Kutaya to check in with principals and see what their feedback was, and
So there was some hesitancy. Certainly, they will do anything the board desires. We were just wondering if parents would give it the appropriate attention. It's an evening where the priority is, I want to meet my child's teacher and be in their classroom. And that is top of mind. So not for any more of a reason of, would this really be a priority in their attention span that evening? Some parents are just getting there by the skin of their teeth because they're coming from work or just threw dinner on the table and they fed the kids and they're coming over to meet the teacher. So there was just some hesitation as to whether it really was the appropriate time to capture the attention of parents. So certainly we would make that work if it's the desire of the board. I think through when do we have a captive audience of families being somewhere where this board could be in front of them. And when I start thinking through the list, such as an open house, what starts to, the cognitive dissonance I experience is, we're bringing, let's say, parents in for, a concert, or bringing families in for parent conferences, etc. It feels disjointed sometimes in, here are some board members with some talking points and let's share how we're going to build new buildings, and parents are running in with bouquets at a chorus to give her a kit, right? So I say that recognizing the need to be in front of our families and parents. I believe in that, but I am kind of hemming and hawing a little bit on, should we really take advantage of what's already in place, or should we build a structure that is specifically intended for board and community engagement around this topic, right? And the more and more I think about it, I'm happy for us to agree and disagree. I think it has to be a poignantly intended, this is the agenda for the meeting, for the gathering. So whether it's information sessions or a community gathering with this specifically on the table, I think some PTA structures could lend themselves to something like this. So that's where we're landing from our side, Ms. Glennon and board members, that I'm not sure that the open house conference night and chorus night or concert night are the best venues for this. And I say that respectfully.
Yeah, I had felt that way when last year we talked about, I think the Perkins Eastman had mentioned plays and stuff like that. It didn't, in that regard, it didn't seem to make sense. I understand the point about open houses. My original thinking, because it was my idea, was that just a table that parents could stop at if they chose to, whether it's, if we were there early and they wanted to come in early or on their way out, or they might not, but it's still, we're present and we have information to share if they choose to consume it. But I certainly understand, I get that perspective as well, so it is what it is. If we don't feel that that's something we want to pursue, then we have to, I think, talk about other potential ways to address this. I did, in talking with the PTA council, I did ask them if they would put together, they could put together for us, like the meeting dates of the individual PTA, like third Thursday of the month or whatever it is, so that we could have that information. And then if that's something that we want to think about doing, we could ask if the PTA leaders have interest in that. Certainly, we'd have to be invited to come into their meeting. Or we could organize some, or do both, and, organize some informational sessions, at east, west, and center of the city or whatever. So I think that's, this is where I think if we could have some conversation tonight about what direction we want to go in, it would be helpful. And then what exactly do we want to be sharing? I think it's important that we start to share information about this timeline so that people understand how long we're really talking about, and that we try to build some partnerships so that we can have advocacy throughout the city for the funding that we're going to need, because really we don't have anything if we don't have the funding. So that's the next critical piece really is the funding. I don't think the CIP part will be, I don't think that will be a roadblock. I think it's the funding that is going to be a big.
Board of Finance, Board of Aldermen.
Yeah. So, discussion. Very clear.
It wasn't until we were just looking at this plan that I thought of this, but considering our limited time and capacity, it seems to me that our energy would be best spent targeting the stakeholders for this timeline. And when I think about,
which one?
Sorry, the timeline that Mr. Brennan just went over between now and June 2028. When I think about going to open house at Mathewson or Orange Ave, while I would love to do that, or going to one of their other events, PTA meeting, I'm happy to and would love to, but I'm not sure that those parents are the stakeholders that we need for this advocacy. I would think there may be interested parents in the city just for the benefit of all kids, but I would think starting specifically really thinking about who our audience is that should be really informed about what's coming and why it matters and what you can do about it and how you can be informed and stay involved and have a voice. I think that that's JFK and Live Oaks and potentially Meadowside and Cap Pen, although that they may be kind of on the outside of this particular timeline of advocating, going and speaking public comment, or sending emails to their board members. So again, not to say I wouldn't go to every single school multiple times, but with the limited number of people that we have and amount of time we have, it seems like that would be having targeted meetings at those schools or with those PTAs as a first priority, more so than sharing the whole plan overall. I think the district has done a decent job of sharing the plan as it is, but someone whose school isn't being touched until 2037, doesn't really matter right now what you love about your school and what you want to keep or not keep, because that's so far away that it almost feels inauthentic to ask the question. So I'll stop talking now, but I think at the very least we should be prioritizing our energy where the stakeholders lie. And it may be also community members in that area, right? Like those neighborhoods, not just parents or school staff, but also the people that live around there too.
So my only comment, I agree. But we're gonna have kids in elementary schools that aren't gonna be touched in 2036, who are going to be impacted in the middle school component.
Yeah,
If the middle school component happens, when we say it happens. So I just think that that's their elementary won't be touched, but will their child be not going to the middle school 1 year, but then going to a new middle school following 2 years? I'm just saying, I think that those kids could still be, those parents could still feel like they are impacted.
I agree wholeheartedly, but I don't see how that impacts advocacy for funding that we need to kick off JFK and Live Oaks. Like, yes, to inform, but this plan has already been adopted. And so I think we just need to understand what our purpose is in all the communications that we have. Like, if we're going out and saying, hey, Mathewson, your kid may be going to a different middle school. I'm not saying that's not important, but that doesn't really impact the people we need to argue that JFK and Live Oaks construction should start in 2029.
So I agree that we need to be clear on what the purpose is, which I think should be the immediate next steps, not what is your school going to look like in 15 years, or asking parents what they like or don't like about their school or what they want to see. I think the immediate piece is the timeline itself. And I think, I don't disagree that the most immediate schools are the ones that we should focus on. But I don't want to see us losing sight of other people that might also be interested in and very supportive of the work, who might, and I, advocate on behalf of the projects in the near future. And I don't know what that piece would look like, but what I'm hearing you say is that we should first focus on these two schools. But we have to remember that it's not just these two. It's not just parents at those two schools that will ultimately be in those two schools. Because ultimately, there's going to be a redistricting, so that there's going to be a shifting. And everybody, the hope is that everyone's going to have at some point a new school. But the kids that are at Live Oaks, JFK and Live Oaks today are not going to be the only kids there once the school opens up. And some of them might not stay at JFK or Live Oaks once we could shift to a different school. So
immediately, like once they open, if we haven't started construction on other schools, like the first year they're open, would there be redistricting in that? If we haven't touched other schools and all you have is JFK and Live Oaks, would you redistrict elementary kids like their first year they're open?
There's a goal to only redistrict once.
So we still have to see what that looks like, but ultimately, I think the point is that ultimately, we're going to have 6 elementary schools. So the makeup of those 6 schools is going to be different. So it's not just one, and I don't want us to get stuck on that point. It's just a point I'm making is that it's not just the 2 schools, really. It's other schools.
So it's likely in 2031 that all 8 elementary schools will be impacted by the opening of JFK and Live Oaks.
Okay, so
To answer that question.
Thinking about Dr. Katai said in very clear, I think what I'm hearing from her is not so much that we're eliminating the discussion about the timeline of those other schools, but I do think that you could begin a focus on JFK and Live Oaks, and maybe like for 5 months, that's, kind of what we're pushing and doing, and because you gotta build a plan. I think there needs to be an intentional plan in how this is being communicated, and maybe like part of step 1 is communicating directly with the schools that will be impacted first, because, those families are gonna deal with construction. And then maybe like part 2 is, whatever, it just has to be something intentional, but I don't see an issue with saying, okay, our energy goes here. And then step 2, our energy goes here, and what does that look like? So I think like you can do like what she's saying and have that intentionality without like spreading us out and explaining like all the schools, because even if we don't, their kids they're not thinking about it. I'm telling you now, like if Andrew was little and he was the 35, I probably wouldn't pay much attention even though like it probably will impact me, I'm probably not really thinking about it. Like he's in first grade and I'm like, oh crap, I should have paid attention because that's impacting me. But the ones that are immediate, they are thinking about it. So I think that's probably what our path forward is, like some energy here and energy there with that intentionality of a plan that moves us there for communication and engagement.
Mr. Scobie?
I had a similar thought. I agree. I think the first thing we need to do is try to define our goal so we know where to put our energy. But in my mind, it's two goals. One being informative for the localized communities that'll be affected by the first batch, so JFK and Live Oaks area, and agreed it shouldn't just be those school families because redistricting and all that can happen. But I also think if we look at what the next step is, it's Mayor submits the citywide CIP to planning and zoning and for adoption. It is not just the families at JFK and Live Oaks that have the ability to speak up at alderman meetings or wherever to garner support for this. It's literally all of Milford. So I think the two goals should be informative messaging to those local families of, hey, this is what's going to happen in your area in the next 3 to 5 years, whatever. And then another goal of, Ms. Edmonds had mentioned the stakeholders. The stakeholders for this entire plan is all of Milford. It's not just localized communities. And so I think the second goal should be just a hearts and minds campaign across the entire city of why this is important, because I haven't talked to the mayor about this. I don't know if anyone else has. I have no idea where any of this is leaning, but I know that if we get enough people across Milford to be going to public comments at all the different board meetings, that is what will actually influence this, if it is a contentious topic at all. So that's what I think our goal should be, is some type of localized thing as we move along, just whichever schools are being impacted, and then just continuously trying to be in the news cycle in some way about why this is important for all of Milford. Yeah, I guess that's where I'm at right now.
I was just going to say, I agree with Mr. Scobie. I think that there is sort of a dual mandate right now. There is an information and awareness campaign, but we also have the opportunity to start building a coalition. And I personally think that our PTAs and PTOs are a great place to start building that coalition. They're already engaged parents that are already meeting and are already talking about improving the schools. And I think that they are a really great opportunity for us to find those partners, to be ambassadors for us to other parents, to the alderman, to the Board of Finance, to the mayor. And I think that'll be a really great place for us to start, socializing our material and starting to build out that messaging, and kind of figuring out where we put hearts, minds, and feet to work.
If I could.
So would board members be amenable to, for instance, doing something similar to what we had been thinking about at the open houses, but doing it at a PTA meeting or PTO meeting? Kind of breaking up.
I think at a PTA meeting, you should have a presentation with set slides. And
Well,
talk
yeah,
points.
but I mean,
that should be
giving,
like Dr. Katai said, that should be the topic of conversation,
Right.
not like a side thing. That's what they're there for, that's what everyone's there for.
Adam wanted to add on.
I completely agree. I think that the PTOs is a good spot to start. I think that's, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think that's definitely a good spot to start. I also, and I don't know if this is just a me thing, but I really enjoy the videos that come out from you guys on that weekly or monthly basis.
Do you like these weeks? I was thinking of you, Adam.
So I think if we put out, just because, speaking at PTA meetings is great, but I can only speak because I haven't gone to all of them. Like when I have gone, there's anywhere between 10 to 20 people that are there, which is a great start. But it's not sweeping.
but I think if we advertise that will be the topic, then
It could bring in more people as
It might
well.
bring in more people.
And then the newsletters that the email blasts we send out, I'm like absolutely guilty of reading the first like 2 paragraphs and being like, I need to make dinner now, and I'll close it, right? But like videos, I can put that on while I'm making dinner or doing the dishes or something, and if they're 5 minutes, just a quick like, hey, this is what's going on in your area, I think those are really effective. But I also think a lot of what we're talking about right now is hitting all the MPS families, and there were, honestly, it was like at the tail end of the community conversations where there were a lot of people that didn't have kids in the district that are like, I had no idea this was going on, my neighbors happened to mention it to me, but it's really important to me to know what's going on. And if we focus on the PTOs and if we focus on these videos, we're not hitting just the general public who don't have anyone in the district. I don't have a solution to this one. I'm throwing a problem out there for everyone, but I think we need to figure out how to hit that bucket as well.
I agree with everyone here. I think that there are opportunities with Milford Business Chamber of Commerce. Speak to them, because building new schools is really great for the community as a whole, to attract new businesses and new families and the dynamic culture of the city. Those kind of activities, also the senior center, Milford Senior Center, some of our biggest skeptics are at the senior center level. Speaking to them so they have the right information of what the impact is, explaining the problem in those situations. There are other community groups who could provide that outlet that we can partner with that I think would be amenable to them going from there. But I think those business partners, that the partnership that we work with in the community, even if it's the United Way or any of those kind of places as well. Chamber.
And when you're getting people to move, I mean, if I was moving, the first thing I'd be thinking of is the schools. It really is. I mean, I don't know anyone I've ever met, even people who haven't had kids yet, when they go to buy a home, the first thing they're asking about are schools. How are the schools? That's how you get people in, that's how you get people living here, shopping at their businesses. I think just, new schools, even just as a message everywhere, is just a positive for the city.
And I think the other half of this is we have to spend the money regardless in schools.
This is true.
That's very true. This is not
No doubt.
we aren't taking perfect schools and tearing them down. We're tearing down schools that are 70 years old that have issues with
That's
them.
part of the presentation that I think we need to include. So there's a level of redundancy, but it's just repeat a message, right? That's an effective communication strategy. Just keep saying, don't assume people know that they're 75 years old.
Right, and that some buildings have the original tile from when the school
Right.
was opened.
So we're happy to tee up a slide deck that could be a summary of where we've been, where we are, and why we're doing this, right? That's one of the key points.
I think pictures of what Mr. Bradbury's highlights would be very beneficial in that situation.
That's a great idea.
I just wonder, the Hearts and Minds campaign, I really like that, Mr. Scobie. I don't know how many people know that we don't have the funding for this. Like, people know that there's this plan, right? And how many people know that the Board of Finance is going to, as our first pass? So really, not just informing them of the condition of our buildings and why we're doing this, but there are 2 critical times that we need people to come out. And it's going to be at a Board of Finance meeting, a Board of Aldermen meeting in the next few months, literally.
I don't know if the Board of Finance, they don't have public comment on their meetings, I don't think.
No, but it's very effective when you fill the room.
Yeah.
You also
Assuming
can
it's
email them.
Yes.
Assuming it's not a virtual meeting, because sometimes they have virtual meetings, the Board of Finance.
But
you can only
to
email
Ms.
the Board of
Flowers'
Finance if
point,
you go
you
through-
can communicate.
go through the finance office, I think.
I emailed them. The second
Individually?
board, the second budget cut.
Okay.
I emailed them. I got it from someone.
It's not easy to access their emails.
It's
though,
not,
right?
yeah, it's not easy.
And who did I send it to?
You might have, like, sometimes they keep people sending it through. Sometimes it'll go through the
You thought you
finance
emailed
office.
them.
Yeah.
I believe.
So,
You
but-
sent it.
Isn't it your neighbor?
So,
One more
Yes.
thing quick. Just one thing on messaging, and I welcome disagreement, but I think the more we dilute what the project at hand is, the more likely we are to experience like distraction from what we're trying to do. And I'm a little bit worried that if, like, of course, some of us are on social media and some of us are not. I know how worried people are about taxes right now. I know how worried people are about the budget right now, and whether they fully understand what's going on or not, I don't know, but it's possible that presenting, like, hey, over the next X number of years, we want to do all of these things, we need advocates, may actually get us more detractors, potentially, versus saying, hey, JFK and Live Oaks need help. These are the pictures of JFK, and these are the pictures of Live Oaks, and they're on two different sides of the city, and here's what they could look like, and like make champions for these two projects, not for the plan as a whole. I think that it will be easier for people to swallow than advocating for Board of Ed's 20-year plan that is kind of abstract and like you don't really know when it's going to hit you, and you don't. And some people may be opposed from the cost. Some people may be opposed from their school close. Like, I think we need to be sensitive because all of those realities are like people's realities. They are worth listening to and hearing. And we need people to believe that we need a new JFK and a new Live Oaks in the next couple of years. And so I think going at the messaging, like, yes, we can talk about our process for the plan, but I don't think people care about that as much as, like if we have a soundbite to get people to believe in what we're saying, we shouldn't spend that soundbite saying, the board's been working on a 20-year plan for the last 4 years, and I think like that gets old. We need the soundbite to be, hey,
by saying that.
we need JFK and we need Live Oaks, and here's why.
If you can make the first two happen and do a good job, the rest of the plan's going to sell itself. People,
Right.
Everybody's going to want a new school.
Exactly. Yeah.
Period. You know,
I
so you just have to really.
Steps.
And once they see it, the other schools are going to be like, whoa.
Yeah.
Why do they get a new school?
Well, you to be honest, you risk the reality that going to every school, there are some schools that lose with this plan, unfortunately, and it's reality, and we could go and present to them and say, come advocate for JFK and Live Oaks, but I would understand if they didn't feel pulled to do that, and I think that's fair, and I think it's like not reading the room to go to Meadowside right now and say, hey, come advocate for this. So like, just to be completely honest, and not to say they shouldn't be included or informed, but I think we need to be sensitive to the reality that like it's not, they're not benefiting first.
I agree with that.
It's a big change, and it's going to take time, it's going to take a long time before the pieces fall into place. I think part of it is like going back to the taxes thing. I think what Megan said, like, we're spending the money, well, how do you want to spend it? Do you want to spend it on Band-Aids, or do you want to spend it on a new school? Like, if you gave that option, you're like, do you want the used car that you keep putting money into, or do you want the new car for the same cost? That's kind of like where we're at with the schools. We're still spending it. Just how do you want to spend it?
Just to make one point of clarification that it doesn't really necessarily pertain to the outcome here, but I do think in terms of the financial piece and the perception of the public, I think there are people who think that millions of dollars are gonna be added to the operating budget of the city, which is not the case. It's,
Right.
you know, their bonding is
There
a
are
whole
definitely
different ballgame, and it's just, it's a very minute piece of the bonding that's gonna be added to the budget. And I'm not a financial expert, I don't have a good understanding of what that means, although I have heard that there is a certain individual who has said that the bonding will not have a huge impact on taxes. I think that, you know, just so that we have that in the back of our heads, that some people do have that misconception that, you know, this is gonna add millions and millions of dollars to the budget. It's not. So what I'm hearing kind of is that maybe we should focus on Live Oaks and JFK PTAs to start with.
Yes.
Hannah, you're shaking your head no?
I agree.
Oh.
I
I don't like this though.
One thing I completely agree, we need to get people to understand the issue right now. There are going to be impacts, but they're gonna be far from here. You know, we don't know what the financial situation is going to be for a year from now in the world climate. Like, we are making decisions based on this information we have at this moment. And I think, to Adam's point regarding the videos, I think creation of a YouTube channel which can identify individual videos of, this is how we got here. This is kind of the status of the buildings, can provide more overview of information that people can have, but it's not right in their face of the full impact. It's like, here are the schools, like, what do we know about it? And so they can get information about, or even a video of, here's the process of what happens when we want to build a school. Like, breaking it down that way, so they can get information in one way, in another way.
Isn't that what we paid Perkins Eastman to make for us? Not a YouTube channel, but we have a website with all of that information, right? So we should be utilizing what we paid for.
Right, I mean, that information is there, but it comes off very differently being spoken by a consultant versus.
Well, but it's not even spoken, it's.
I just think yes, we know every school has significant needs, but to me, that makes me feel anxious and stressed out, thinking like, oh my God, all of our schools, how are we ever gonna do this? Versus a message of, let's get a list of all the things that are gonna break at JFK. I hate to say it like that, but let's be specific, because you're not gonna get a champion. There may be champions for the whole district plan, but really, it's overwhelming.
I don't think we are saying different things. I think we're both saying the same thing. Focus on what's in front of us right now. And we can figure out how to add robust content over time.
I think people who are at JFK and Live Oak School are very well aware of the shortfalls of their buildings. You know, especially Live Oaks. So I don't think we have to convince they're ecstatic, you know, but at the prospects of a new building. But I think, you know, we still need to elicit their help in moving this all forward. So what I'm hearing is PTAs, JFK, and Live Oaks. Your ideas of videos, that's a great idea. Did you, how might that, what information in a video? Still focusing?
I was thinking something similar to Megan, and I've been thinking about this for the last 10 minutes, so I'm perfectly fine with being shot down, but 30 to 60 second videos of this came up, and I can't fact check this, but bond funding doesn't really increase your taxes that much. That's not going to be the first video because that's not very exciting, right? But maybe week 6 or something, once people are bought in a little bit more, you know, you throw in that one about taxes. But the first one, to Ms. Edmonds' point, the first one is just all about we need to rally support because JFK and Live Oaks need help. Here's why, right? And maybe that's where we throw in the videos or pictures from Mr. Bradbury. And then the second week can be you know, we talked last week about the state of the buildings, and this is what the new buildings could look like, and then, I don't know, I'm, again, 10 minutes of brainstorming in my head, I made that part. But just, because if we make these 30 to 60 second clips, they might actually get shared on social media, and they might actually get watched. Anything over 2 minutes, I think it's a huge toss-up. with our attention spans
So I
these
think
days.
we can flesh out some ideas, like, so that you have more than 10 minutes to think about it.
Yeah,
You
sure.
can think it
With my
through
marketing
and
degree.
maybe put some ideas on paper,
Yeah.
all of us. But those two things are a good start, I think. And then the last piece that we talked about was figuring out a way to hit the community at large. So maybe that's something that we should think about a little bit more, a little bit further. I think the Chamber of Commerce is a good option, it's a good idea.
Those videos might help too, if they get shared.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're not just NPS.
Okay. So, is that a good starting point, Dr. Pataya?
I'm reaching out to the JFK and Live Oaks PTAs, see if we can get you there.
I have some of the information about that at home, so. touch base
We'll
on that.
work on a slide deck of information that you can respond to for feedback and see if that's hitting the messaging you want. We'll entertain a series of videos that are specific to Live Oaks and JFK.
Yeah.
Is that what I heard, specificity? And then I think I need clarity on the Chamber of Commerce piece, because I obviously have many individuals I could talk to there, but what is my message with that?
To me, I see the chamber Adam brought up the point that this is the chamber's a suggestion, and this is a community as of a whole of Milford. And so, getting the buy-in of the Chamber of Commerce, whose purpose is to bring people to Milford, to tell them about this great investment that we want to make in the community, and from their perspective, how does building new schools help make Milford a better community or improve opportunities?
So informative,
Yes.
Yeah.
just to get them up to date
Yes.
on what we're doing. Because I see them as a connection to the businesses, bringing businesses to town.
But businesses want good schools too.
Right,
because
right.
they-
So it just makes me think about when we get this rolling further down the road, how to onboard some realtors,
Yes.
so they better understand as well.
Yeah, and I think that piece might be something that, we flesh out a little bit more. I don't think that's necessarily the most critical piece, right?
No, I was thinking,
I will tell you, just as a real estate agent, we can't talk about schools.
Really?
No.
but
It
do
is
you anyway?
fair housing, no.
Not you, I'm sorry. Do realtors in general talk about schools or no?
If I have a client, legally, if I have a client who says, how are the schools? My answer has to be, here is great schools. I recommend that, and I did this, I went and met with the principal of Orange Ave when we were in contract to buy our house. Go to the school, email the principal, I advise chatting with them. I cannot legally talk about schools.
Can you
That's
hand out
interesting.
information about schools, or you just have to direct them to?
I can't hand out information about one school because that's steering them to one school.
Right.
So I'd have to ask my manager.
You can't say we're building the city.
You can talk
plans
about
on
building new schools.
You can't specifically talk about a school, but you could inform a potential home buyer that Milford is investing
Yes,
in their schools and looking to build, new ones.
yes.
That you could do, and that would be very informative.
And if you wanted to do that, I would recommend talking to individual brokerages, and as board members, you could go to a meeting. Like they could have a special meeting for the agents in the office to come, and you could talk, board members could talk.
For later down the road.
Yeah, but I think, and I'm happy to ask my manager for more specifics on what can be handed out. I just know for me, it is, you direct them to great schools, you direct them to online places where they can research the whole community.
Interesting.
That's fair housing.
So I'm just making sure I understand this for future reference for, so you're saying you can't reference a specific school, you can't say Milford has great schools in
You can
general?
say Milford has great schools, you can't
A
say
general
that
statement?
school A is better than school B,
Yeah.
and you should go to school A because
Like a
of
client
this.
can say to me, I only want to go to X high, I want to be only in X high school. And I can say, you never know, districts can redistrict. And so in that case, yes, I can specifically search because I've been directed to do that. But I can't say,
I want to be in.
Milford is building a new school for Live Oaks. You should look, you know what I mean? It's like that kind of stuff
Gotcha.
that you
Yeah.
have to be careful of.
Because fair housing is basically trying to correct some of the redlining and other.
Yeah, steering. But I mean,
You could say we're gonna
educating,
investing in schools.
and you will see that, like, I know Weathersfield and those areas are building, up in Hartford are building a lot of new schools up there. So a meeting at, one of the firms with agents, you could definitely come and chat with them, but I just don't know exactly how much information agents can actually hand out. But it would be helpful for them to know that Milford is investing in schools. Hopefully, a lot of them already know that.
Do we think that maybe making this timeline, the building project timeline a little bit more visual, would it be valuable to put this on, or add this to the website?
Yes,
Yes,
without an
definitely. I think you need
acronym,
to,
you
yeah.
put that up there, some people are like, I don't know what that means.
What?
You gotta put like CIP.
Oh, no,
No,
yeah.
you make it,
Gotta
But-
make- gotta be
In general,
Visual.
but
visual, yeah.
looks like a
in
waterfall.
general, or
I think
is
it
it
would be
too
good.
much information?
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't think it's too much
No.
information.
I think it,
I think the whole thing's good because the
Understanding the
emphasis on
process
the
is
next
good,
step.
yeah.
Yeah.
The next step should be like the biggest, boldest one.
The other part we have in this conversation that is not immediate is advocacy at state reps and state senators.
Yeah, that's down the road though, so.
Well, wait a minute, so we're just going back to this plan. I think what we're missing here is what you do about it. Right, like, it's not, personally, I didn't, before I got into Board of Ed stuff, I did not know that you go speak for 3 minutes. Like, I think a lot of people do know that, but not everyone, and so it may be helpful to know, like, what's the action step here? How do you get involved?
Sounds like a great 30-second video.
That's your first
Yes, it
video.
does. There you
That's
go.
your first video.
Who's on
the
this
first one?
board?
when are you available, Mr. Scobie?
Who is going to be making these videos? Yes, that was my next question. I was gonna put that in an email though.
I motioned that it's Mr. Scobie.
Every week. I have a question.
Yes.
And this is also in the future too, but is the committee, what is it called again?
Permanent Schools Committee.
Thank you.
That's the short version.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Is that an open meeting?
Yes, they are public meetings.
Can we
But-
get them on MGAT when we are?
No.
No.
Why?
Well, MGAT, it's up to MGAT to decide what they're gonna put on the meeting. We can ask MGAT. I
The
don't,
minutes and the agendas
They're
are
not-
on the Milford page, but we don't have a separate page.
they have minutes.
If you just
They're
search
very
for
good
permanent
minutes.
schools, you can find agendas and
Right,
minutes.
but with parents, reading minutes,
I could ask, sure, we could ask.
and I don't mean every meeting, but I think ones that are specific to this, I think could be helpful. I don't know if people would watch, but just having that option.
Well, just so you know, like picking the architect is executive session. So that's not an open conversation.
I understand.
But she's talking about open meetings.
I'm talking
Yeah.
about open meetings.
Yeah, but that's a big one.
But their meetings are open. They are considered a public meeting. They have to have an agenda, they have to have minutes. And their minutes are, so if you search the city agendas and minutes, you have to put in, I think it's Board of Aldermen, other committees. You have to search for other
You can do a
committees.
search on permanent schools and it pops up
Yeah.
on.
Well, maybe one of the videos could be explaining what this committee does.
Mhm.
I don't
That would
know.
be
I just don't
that
think
would be
people,
more than 60 seconds.
well, maybe. Throw it into AI and say, take this to 30 seconds. I just think that, the whole point is to try to help people understand
Mhm.
the process as well.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else before we move on? All right, so this is a good start.
We'd like to move to the disbursement report at this time.
Members of the board, in your package you will find a list of all the cash disbursements over the amount of $1,500 for the month of July. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
I gotta find it. I lost my packet. Are there questions for Mr. Brennan on the disbursement report? Ms. Doyle?
Thank you. Second line down, Assacher, I think that's how you say it, New England Trust, is that consultation fee for insurance generally?
Yes, that's our insurance consultant.
Okay, and then our legal fees. I know we have a retainer payments, so how is that separated? Goes to the retainer, is that the above overage, the legal services on second line for HR, special ed, all districts?
Yes, the retainer fee is separated out on its own line, which is, yes, right above that, on line 12-ish, somewhere around there.
Okay.
And then any fee beyond that would go on a separate line.
So our retainer fee is $120,000 a year, and then we just do?
Correct.
Okay. That was just the only question I had.
Any other questions on the disbursement report? Ms. Edmonds?
Do we have 4 separate Power School databases?
Yes, so that one there, there's 4 different ones. One of them has to deal with the evaluation system. One of them is for like our system that holds the student data. Another one would be a registration portal, I believe, Mr. Giancola. And then there's also there's one down below. That's Naviance, I believe, is the college portion of it. So 4 different modules per se.
Any others? All right. Thank
And
you.
moving on to the talent management and development report.
Thank you. On my report, you have the listing of job postings, personnel recommendations, retirements, resignations, terminations, and stipend appointments. I do want to point out that the listing of job postings obviously is already out of date, as we hired, I think, 5 new teachers on Friday. So I'm pleased to announce that we have so far 48 new teachers on board. Dr. Orteri mentioned that we had the MTA last week where we had 50 people, but some of those new teachers were teachers that were hired mid-year, who we have them come just so they can experience it. And of course, people that I hired on Friday couldn't make it, so they'll go next year. But the 48 new teachers represent 18 different teaching endorsement areas and 23 different towns and cities in Connecticut, which is pretty exciting. The highest obviously being Milford. Or maybe not obviously, but the highest being Milford.
I'm sorry, how many did you just say? Different?
18 different teaching endorsement areas and 23 different towns, cities of residence in Connecticut. We are currently searching for 9 teaching positions and 6 para positions. And we do have a head start on some of these. Unfortunately, we had a couple people decline a couple offers today, but we're in good shape. They're all staffed in some way, shape, or form. A couple of these roles are new, so we are able to staff them without issue for now. We ended up with 15 teacher retirements prior to 7/1, counting as last year. And we have already started, somebody retired early in August, so we are up to 1 retirements for the count towards next year. And I think that's it.
Speaking of retirements.
Were you at one retirement? I am not that one, that's a teacher retirement.
You're getting nice retirement past them. So thank you for your many years of service.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I know we still have you for another meeting.
1 more month, yep.
Are you counting the days?
No, not at all.
Well, that makes your officially last talent management development report of your career.
1 more, I think.
1 more, September.
Because
sorry.
comes pretty
Yes.
quickly.
But
Today's business, it's August, sorry. Yes,
That's
one
right,
more.
no, that's okay, 1 more. But who's counting?
Any questions for Ms. Katasna? Yes, Ms. Edmonds?
You mentioned that the teachers, everything's staffed in some way, shape, or form. What does that look like for a grade 1, grade 3, grade 5 teacher, for example?
Okay, so grade 1 and grade 3 luckily are filled. We have a grade 5 opening left. And what that looks like is the person that resigned late, so we are holding that teacher for 30 days. Actually, in that case, that teacher is moving to another role within the district. We're keeping her in this role until we can get somebody on board to come in. So it could look like a building sub, redivvying people, but in that particular case for a classroom teacher, the teacher that was there last year will be there until we can fill her spot. Yeah.
Ms. Doyle?
Thank you. The last page before the minutes is the student assistance team stipends.
Yes.
Are those, can you just explain a little bit about that?
Okay. Can you explain that, Don? What the student assistance team?
I think
So-
Dr. O'Terry can.
Okay.
So
Okay.
student
Okay.
student assistance team at the schools, that is the individual that helps support our MTSS process. So as we talk about multi-tiered systems of support, so that's when we talk about, tier 1 being content for all students, tier 2, tier 3, they're really helping to support not only the academic, but also in some cases help to support behavioral plans to support students in the classroom. So that's a team that meets regularly. Students oftentimes will get referred to SAT, and the teacher teams will get together, they'll bring in the classroom teacher or related services staff and be able to create a plan to support that student.
And these are teachers, right?
Those are
These
teachers,
are
yeah,
stipends that are paid in addition.
there's a
to-
combination, so if you're looking at elementary, it may be a teacher leader, it could be a stipend that's split across, instructional coaches and a teacher leader, so it really just differs based on how the building leader wants to structure that, the leadership of that team.
Okay, thank you.
And they are contracted, they're in our contract.
Right.
Thank you, Dr. O'Terry.
No problem.
Any other questions for Ms. Kapazna?
That finalizes the
All right,
superintendent's
thank you.
report, Ms. Leonard.
Okay, we have a consent agenda, Ms. Doyle.
Yes. I move to approve the minutes for the July 13th, 2026 business meeting.
Your second?
Second.
Ms. Tedrow seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Any board comment tonight? Wishing everybody a good first day of school. I know we're excited in my household, my extended household.
My kids need
It's 2 kindergartners starting, so they what they.
My kids need to go to school.
Yeah.
I'm very excited.
All right, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Anybody object to adjourning at 9:32? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.